Hello, my dear students. Myself, Dr. Pitambar Umne, founder Botany for You, and working as Associate Professor and Head Department of Botany, Dharampet MP Dev Memorial Science College, Nagpur, Maharashtra, India. I welcome you all in this online platform for the students of Life Sciences Botany for You. Friends, in our earlier class, we have seen the absorption of mineral salts. And today, we are going to see the 12th lecture in this lecture series in plant physiology, that is mineral nutrition. If you are new or not yet subscribed our YouTube channel, then kindly like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel Botany for You. If you want to associate with us through the Telegram group, then you can use the link given in the description to join the Telegram group so that you can take the advantage of the different PDF literatures as well as the career opportunities in life sciences in India and abroad. So friends, let's see today's topic, that is mineral nutrition. So first of all, question arises that what is mineral nutrition? So whenever we are talking about the any plants, so if we have to carry out this plant, that is the chemical analysis. So the chemical analysis of its dry ash, and this dry ash is obtained by burning the plant material, and further when this dry ash is analyzed for its chemical constituents, it contains around the 40 different elements. It means that the plant body is made up of these different 40 types of the elements, and these are used for the formation of different organic and inorganic components of the plant body. Out of these different chemical components, some of the components like the carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, that the carbon is absorbed from the environment or the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide during the photosynthesis, and the hydrogen is absorbed from the soil by the roots in the form of water, and this oxygen is present in carbon dioxide as well as the water molecule. Again, the many other components which are present in the soil and that are absorbed by the roots, that we have seen earlier, the absorption of the mineral salts. And out of these 40 different elements which are found in the plant body in the form of the chemical constituents, in the form of organic and inorganic material, some of the essential for growth and development of the plant body, and some may not be essential for growth and development of the plant body. So those elements which are useful or important or essential for the growth and development, they are known as the essential elements. Now when we are talking about the essential elements, there are around 17 essential elements. So out of that, here the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, iron, manganese, zinc, boron, copper, then nickel, chloride and molybdenum are basically the considered as a essential elements. But in other plants, again some of the other elements in the form of the essential elements are found, that is the aluminum, silicon, then cesium, then sodium, cobalt, vanadium, and gallium. So these are the different components which are again found to be essential in some other plants. So these different essential elements are classified into the two categories. If we see the Epstein in 1972, and according to him, if the elements are responsible to complete the life cycle of the plant body, then they are considered as essential elements. So these essential elements which are responsible to complete the life cycle of the plant body according to the Epstein in 1972 are categorized into the two major classes, that is the major elements and the minor elements. The major elements are considered as a macronutrients and the minor elements are considered as a micronutrients. Again, these micronutrients are also known as the trace element, but it cannot be confused with the tracer elements, because the tracer elements are those elements which are isotopes or the radioactive elements. These are usually and commonly found in the or used in the plant physiology to know the path of the different biochemical processes. So the major elements or the macronutrients include the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, sulfur, and the magnesium. And the minor elements or the micronutrients includes the iron, manganese, zinc, boron, copper, nickel, chloride, and the molybdenum. So why these are considered as a major elements or the macronutrients, and why these are known as the trace elements, micronutrients, or the minor elements? Because this is carried out on the basis of its essentiality in amount in the plant body. So let's clear it with the help of its concentration or the percentage found in the dry weight of the plant body. So these essential elements are now categorized into the macronutrients and the second one the micronutrients. And if we see this weight, that is the milligram per kg or its percentage, so see the carbon, oxygen, then hydrogen, so these are found in 45%, 45%, 6%. Means basically the plant body is made up of the carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. In addition to that, there is a presence of nitrogen, that is 1.5%, 1% potassium, 0.5% calcium, then 0.2% magnesium, then 0.2% phosphorus, and 0.1% sulfur. While if we compare this macronutrients to that of the micronutrients, then you will find that here the iron is present in 0.01%. Again, the chlorine is present in 0.01%. Then manganese, that is the 0.005. Then boron, that is the 0.002. Zinc 0.002. Then copper 0.006. Then molybdenum 0.00001. So nickel don't have the information about its percentage in the plant body. So on this basis we can compare the macronutrients and the micronutrients that the macronutrients require in the more quantity as compared to the micronutrients, and hence the name is given. Macro means the big one and micro means in a very small. So if we see these macronutrients and the micronutrients, then also we can easily find out the differences on the basis of their functions in the plant body. So if you see the general functions of the essential elements in the plant body, they are categorized into the 4 different categories. So the first one, that is the constituents of the protoplasm and cell wall. We know in any plant or any living organism, it is made up of cell, and in the plants there is presence of the cell wall and the plasma membrane, while the cytoplasm then nucleus. So this cytoplasm and this nucleoplasm, that is the protoplasm, contain the different minerals, and this includes the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. If you see any component, that is the carbohydrate C6H12O6, that is the structure of glucose or the fructose, it contains the carbon, hydrogen and the oxygen. So in addition to that, the nitrogen is present in the amino acids or the proteins. In addition to that, it is present again in the nucleic acids. The sulfur and phosphorus, they are present in the proteins as well as the nucleic acids respectively. The magnesium is a main component of the chlorophyll, while the calcium is playing an important role in various metabolic activities in the plant body. In addition to that, there is another function, that is the influence on the osmotic pressure of the plant cell. Earlier we have seen the diffusion and the osmosis, and the osmosis is one of the important processes in the plant physiology and is useful in translocation of the water as well as the different minerals, and hence the different components which are soluble in the water or osmotically active are responsible to maintain the osmotic pressure of the plant cell in the different organs. Then third one, that is the catalytic functions. So in plants or in any living organism, there are thousands of metabolic or biochemical processes or the reactions, and these are different biochemical or the metabolic processes or the reactions which are carried out, they are completely dependent upon the enzymes. And if we see these different enzymes which are responsible to catalyze the different biochemical processes or the reactions, here the certain components act as a prosthetic group. So these different components or the elements like the iron, copper, zinc, molybdenum, magnesium, manganese and the chlorine, they act as a prosthetic group in many enzymes. Again, in case of the cofactor as well as they are components of the different vitamins, and hence they show the catalytic function in association to that of the enzymes. And the fourth one, that is the antagonistic or the balancing function. If you see earlier the absorption of the mineral, we have seen there is a need of the balancing of the anions and the cations in the plant body. So that is again one of the functions which is carried out by the calcium ions or the potassium ion. In addition to that, if there are certain components which are poisonous in nature, so in such a cases, here these different components or the elements which are present in the plant body, they are showing their antagonistic nature or the activity against such poisonous elements, and hence they act as a antagonistic function in the plant body. Then here the specific roles and deficiency of essential elements. Now, if we see the different components which are present in the plant body, they are responsible to carry out a particular function. As earlier we have seen, the nitrogen is one of the component of the nitrogen bases. Nitrogen bases are responsible for the formation of the nucleic acid. Again, it is a member of amino group, that is, it is a component of the amino acid, and the amino acid is responsible for the formation of the protein. So in this way we can easily remember the specific roles as well as the deficiency of that particular essential element. Say for example, now here if we see the function of the nitrogen, that it is important constituent of protein that we have seen here. Then again it is a constituent of the nucleic acid. Then porphyrin, that the porphyrin rings are responsible for the formation of the structure of chlorophyll in association to that of the magnesium. Again, it is involved in the formation of the alkaloids, some vitamins, and even the coenzymes. So in this way we can find out, or we can imagine, the important roles of the nitrogen in the plant body. So if there will not be the availability of the nitrogen in the soil where the plant is growing, then because of the deficiency of the nitrogen in the soil, which type of the symptoms will be shown by the plants? That is known as the deficiency symptoms. So first one, there will be the chlorosis of the leaves, and the chlorosis of leaves means that the leaves become yellow. In addition to that, the again older leaves affected first during the chlorosis. It means that if the older leaves are affected first, means the nitrogen is highly mobile, and from the older leaves it is immediately transported to the developing or the younger leaves, and hence here the older leaves are affected first. That is the reason behind it. Then petioles and veins becomes colored, and in addition to that the plant growth is stunted, means there will be the reduction in the growth of the plant if the nitrogen will be present in the soil in a less quantity or will not be available to the plant body where it is growing. Second one, that is the phosphorus, and phosphorus is an important constituent of the nucleic acid. Earlier if you see the structure of the DNA molecule, it is made up of the nitrogen bases, sugar, and the phosphate, and this phosphate is present in the form of the phosphoric acid, that is the H3PO4. So this is one of the most important component of the nucleic acid. Again, it is present in the phospholipids. It is a constituent of the coenzyme NAD, NADP, and again the ATP molecules. Hence we can say that if the phosphate deficiency will be there, the plant body will not be able to form the ATP molecules or the NADP molecules. If there will be a deficiency of the phosphorus in the soil, it result into the premature leaf fall, means the younger leaves will be fall down. In addition to that, the development of the necrotic areas on the leaves, means on the leaves here there will be development of such a type of the patches on the leaves which are considered as a necrotic area, and even on the fruits. Again, the leaves turn dark to blue-green in color. This is one of the identification mark of the phosphorus deficiency in the plants. The third one, that is the sulfur. Sulfur is an important constituent of the amino acids like the cysteine and the methionine, and we know the methionine is the amino acid which is coded by the initiation codon, and without it there will not be the formation of the protein chain. Then some vitamins like the biotin, thiamine and coenzyme A, again the disulfide linkage help to stabilize protein structure, and the sulfhydryl group are necessary for activity of many enzymes. It means that here stabilization of the protein structure as well as the formation of the many enzymes, many amino acids, vitamins like the biotin, thiamine and coenzyme A are completely dependent upon the sulfur. In such a situation, if the sulfur will not be available to the plant body in the soil, then it causes the chlorosis of the leaves, which is one of the function of the deficiency of the nitrogen. Then younger leaves are affected first. This is completely opposite to that of the deficiency symptom of the nitrogen, because in a nitrogen deficiency we have seen here the older leaves are affected first, but here the younger leaves are affected first. This is because of what? As compared to the nitrogen, this sulfur is less mobile, and hence it remain present in the older leaves, and the younger leaves shows the deficiency, and hence the younger leaves shows the symptoms than the older leaves. The tips and the margins of leaves roll inwards. Again, the stem becomes hard due to the development of the sclerenchyma. Means when there will be the deficiency of the sulfur, the sclerenchymatous tissues are formed more as compared to the parenchymatous tissue, and hence the stem becomes hard. Then the fourth one, that is the calcium, the important constituent of the middle lamella of the cell wall, then essential in formation of cell membrane, that is the plasma membrane, and also the calcium act as a second messenger in metabolic regulation, and also help to stabilize the chromosome structure and activator of the enzyme. So to maintain this chromosome structure and as an activator of the enzyme is most important function of the calcium. And if the calcium is not present in the soil, or if it is not available in the soil for the plants, then it will show the symptoms like the disintegration of growing meristematic regions. Means here there will be the reduction in the amount of meristematic tissues. Then again the chlorosis along the margin of leaves. Then malformation of younger leaves are also takes place. This means that again the calcium deficiency shows the abrupt and the drastic effect on the younger leaves than the older leaves, because again it is less mobile than the nitrogen. The fifth one is a magnesium. If you see the magnesium, it is an important constituent of the chlorophyll, that earlier I have told you that the porphyrin rings are joined with each other by means of the magnesium to form the chlorophyll, and hence without magnesium there will not be the formation of the chlorophyll. It acts as an activator for many enzymes in phosphate transfer reactions, that is the carbohydrate metabolism and nucleic acid synthesis, and hence again the magnesium is most important element in carbohydrate metabolism as well as the nucleic acid synthesis. Also it binds the ribosomal particles during the protein synthesis. When during the protein synthesis the two subunits join with each other, that is the smaller subunit and the larger subunit during the protein synthesis, there is need of the magnesium, and hence again it is playing an important role in the protein synthesis. If the magnesium is not available to the plant body, the plant shows the interveinal chlorosis of the leaves. Interveinal chlorosis, it means that here there will be the formation of the yellowish patches in between the veins on the leaves. Again, the older leaves are affected first because the magnesium is highly mobile and it can be easily transported to the growing young leaves. Then the formation of dead necrotic patches on the leaves. This is important. Means when there will the formation of the necrotic patches on the leaves, they are almost dead. So this is a characteristic feature or the identification characteristics of the magnesium deficiency. The sixth one, that is the potassium. And the potassium is essential for the photosynthesis and the respiration. It acts as an activator like the magnesium. It contributes in the osmotic potential of the plant cell, and I already told you that to maintain the osmotic pressure of the plant cell is very much important during the transport of water as well as the minerals as well as the food material or the organic matter. It play an active role in stomatal movement. Again, the potassium is also involved in the opening and closing of the stomata. If you see the lecture on the transpiration, you will come to know what is the role of potassium in movement of the stomata, and hence we can say that again it is responsible to control the rate of the transpiration. If potassium will not be available to the plant body, that is the deficiency of the potassium will be there, there will be the chlorosis of the leaves, then stunted growth and shortening of the internodes. So on the basis of this one, that is the shortening of the internode, we can easily identify the plant that it is a deficient of the potassium. In addition to that, here there is a development of the necrotic patches at the tip and the margins of the leaves. And also here the margins of the leaves curved downwards. Again, the shortening of the internodes and the curved margins of the leaves is again the identification characteristic feature of the deficiency symptoms of the potassium. Then the micronutrients. The first one, that is iron. If you see the iron, it is an important constituent of the iron porphyrin protein. That is the cytochrome, peroxidase and catalase, etc. Means here the iron play an important role of the catalysis. Then it is essential for synthesis of the chlorophyll. Again, means here the magnesium and iron both are essential for the formation of the chlorophyll. Again, it plays active role in nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation means the process in which there is a conversion of the atmospheric or the molecular nitrogen into the different inorganic nitrogens, that is the nitrate, nitrite and ammonia, that is known as the nitrogen fixation. And this during the nitrogen fixation or this during this conversion of the molecular nitrogen into the inorganic nitrogen, also the iron play an important role. And also it is used in the light reactions, that is the cyclic photophosphorylation and the non-cyclic photophosphorylation, that we will discuss in the upcoming lectures in the photosynthesis. If the iron will be deficient in the soil, the plant will show the rapid interveinal chlorosis of the leaves. Means here there will be the formation of the yellowish patches in between the veins on the leaves. And again, the younger leaves affected first because the iron is less mobile than that of the nitrogen. The second one, that is the manganese. And manganese act as a activator of many respiratory enzymes. It is necessary for evolution of the oxygen in photosynthesis. And the deficiency of manganese results into the chlorotic and the necrotic spots in the interveinal areas of the leaves. Then third one, that is the copper. The copper is a constituent of the oxidizing enzymes. High concentration is toxic to the plants, and hence it is a micronutrient and found in very less quantity in plant body, as in the higher quantity it is toxic to the plants. If there will be a deficiency of the copper, it result into the formation of necrosis of the tip of the leaves. In addition to that, here it will cause the dieback of the citrus and other fruit trees. You have might be observed that the citrus plant or some other fruit plant shows the branches are going to dry, and such a type of the drying of the branches is a disease, and that is known as the dieback disease. Again, the reclamation of the diseases of the cereals and the leguminous plants. If there will be the deficiency of the copper, again after this there will be the different diseases on the plant body. Then the fourth one, that is the zinc, and it is involved in biosynthesis of growth hormone, that is the auxin indole acetic acid. And if there will the deficiency symptom of the zinc, it causes the chlorosis of the older leaves which start from tip and the margins, and also mottled leaf in apple, citrus, walnut and other fruit plants. So see here again, the older leaves are showing the chlorosis. It means that here again it is mobile and hence not found in the older leaves, and it is provided to the younger leaves. Then the fifth one micronutrient, that is the boron, and the function of boron is a metabolism and is not clearly known, but probably facilitates the translocation of the sugar. Means when the sugar is translocated from one place to the another place, here there is need of the boron. If you see the symptoms of the boron deficiency, then death of the shoot tip, which is the identification characteristics of the boron deficiency, then suppressed flower formation and the stunted root growth, and also the leaves with the coppery in texture, which is again one of the identification character of the boron deficiency. The sixth one is molybdenum. The molybdenum is associated with the prosthetic group of the enzymes nitrate reductase. This nitrate reductase enzyme is again useful in nitrogen fixation and nitrogenase, and thus useful in the nitrogen metabolism. We know this nitrogenase is an enzyme which is used for the conversion of this molecular nitrogen into the different inorganic nitrogen, and hence the molybdenum iron protein is one of the component of the nitrogenase enzyme and is useful in the nitrogen metabolism or the nitrogen fixation. If the molybdenum is not present in the soil or in the plant body, then the symptoms becomes chlorotic interveinal mottling of the older leaves. It means that again the molybdenum is mobile, and because of that the deficiency is first found in the older leaves. Again, the inhibition of flower formation and causes the whiptail disease in the cauliflowers. Here, if there will be the formation of the strap-shaped leaves in the cauliflower, then it is known as the whiptail disease of the cauliflower plant. Then seventh one, that is the chlorine. And the chlorine in the form of chloride ion, it is involved in photolysis of water. When we are talking about the photolysis of water, it is the process of breaking the water molecule in presence of the light to release the proton, electron and oxygen. This electron is used in the non-cyclic photophosphorylation, and oxygen which is evolved during the photosynthesis that's come from the photolysis of water. So again the oxygen evolution in the photosynthesis, and that is because of the chlorine. It is useful in cell division in leaves and roots, and also important osmotically active solids, because the chlorine is responsible to increase the concentration of the cell sap, and hence it is osmotically active element. If the chlorine will not be present in the plant body or the soil, then it will show the wilting of leaf tips followed by chlorosis and the necrosis. Chlorosis, that is the formation of the yellowish patches, and the necrosis means the patches on leaves. Then the reduced growth of the leaves and bronzing colors or the bronzing occurs. So reduction of the root length and thickened near the tip. So this is one of the characteristic features of the chlorine deficiency. And the last one, that is the nickel. Nickel is a cofactor of the enzyme urinase in the higher plants. And if there will the deficiency of the nickel, the symptoms on the plant body shows the accumulation of urea in the leaves, then it result into the necrosis of the leaf tips. So this is one of the important thing, that the urea is accumulated if there will be the nickel deficiency. In addition to these, again the sodium and the silicon are the upcoming micronutrients, and that will be soon added as a micronutrients, though they are used in a very small quantity but are found essential in the different metabolic activities in the plants. So friends, I am very much hopeful and confident that this lecture will be helpful to you in preparation of your examination for UG, PG as well as the different competitive examinations in life sciences. Thank you very much for watching the lecture completely. If you like this lecture and if it is beneficial to you, then kindly like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel Botany for You. And also press bell icon for the alerts of every lecture to be uploaded on different life sciences titles. And don't forget to join our Telegram group with the link given in the description. Thanks a lot once again.